The rain hammered against the tall glass windows of Brookside Capitol Tower as if the sky itself was angry, but inside the grand marble lobby, life moved on without noticing the storm, except for one man. Christopher Hale, a tired single father with thinning sleeves and worn-out sneakers, stood just inside the revolving door, clutching a faded backpack strap as though it held his whole world inside. His hands were trembling slightly, not from the cold, but from the weight of a decision he had carried for weeks. Today he would finally check his bank account. Not the little checking account where his janitor's pay dripped in and evaporated with bills, but the other one. The one he never touched. The one connected to a past he ran from. The one he prayed he'd never have to open. But life had cornered him, and a single dad can only stretch miracles so far. If you're watching this and you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stories like these can change someone's day. Christopher inhaled deeply, the air thick with the scent of fresh polish on the lobby floors, his own work from just an hour earlier. He had stayed behind after his night shift because he didn't own a working computer at home, and the public library's terminals were always full. So here he was, standing among polished shoes, designer briefcases, and people who never glanced down at the janitor who made their mornings spotless. He kept his gaze low, trying not to draw attention as he approached the wide reception desk where a row of computers waited for employees and guests to check emails, schedules, and balances on personal payroll accounts. His supervisor had told him weeks ago he could use them, in emergencies only. Today qualified. But just as he reached for the chair, he heard heels clicking sharply behind him. He turned, already shrinking at the presence of someone powerful. It was Veronica Stinson, the CEO of Brookside Capitol. Tall, impeccably dressed, with an aura that filled any room she walked into, she stared at him with raised eyebrows. Around her, two directors whispered, amused, as if the janitor had wandered somewhere he didn't belong. Christopher swallowed hard and backed away from the chair. That moment, those 2 seconds of shame, felt like a familiar bruise pressed again. Ever since his wife died 2 years ago, he had been trying to find footing not just in finances but in self-worth. He had taken the janitor job because it was the only one that offered flexible hours so he could care for his 8-year-old daughter, Charity. He worked nights, slept in little fragments, and stretched every dollar until it begged for mercy. Still, he smiled for Charity. Still, he fought every day to be enough. But moments like this made him feel small, invisible, and out of place in the very world he cleaned. Veronica crossed her arms and asked him what he thought he was doing, reminding him sternly that these computers were for staff, professionals, people with appointments and reasons to be here. She didn't say, people like you, but the implication hovered. The directors chuckled quietly, assuming that a janitor wanting to check his balance meant he had maybe $20 left and needed to make sure the bank wasn't charging him fees. Veronica laughed lightly. You're worried the account might be empty. Don't worry, those maintenance checks always come through on time. Christopher didn't argue. He didn't complain. He didn't even defend himself. He simply lowered his head again, pulled out the folded slip of paper with the account login information he had avoided for years, and quietly asked if he could use the computer for just a moment. Something in his voice, not desperation, but exhaustion, softened Veronica's expression. She stepped aside but remained near him, curious now. The director smirked, whispering, watch, he probably has $10 in there. Christopher sat down, his fingers slightly shaking as he typed. He hadn't logged in since before Charity was born. Back when he had sworn he wanted nothing to do with the family that had turned its back on him. Before he walked away from an inheritance he didn't believe he deserved. Before he promised himself he would build his own life with the woman he loved, his late wife, Hannah, who had always told him kindness and humility were worth more than any fortune. Now, with bills piling up, Charity's school threatening suspension over unpaid fees, and his car one sputter away from dying, he had run out of options. He entered the final password. The screen loaded. For a moment, there was only silence. Veronica watched over his shoulder casually, ready to move on, until her breath caught. Her hand flew to her mouth. The directors stopped laughing altogether. Because on the screen, under the simple white text reading available balance, was a number so large it didn't even fit the default font spacing. The trust fund he had never touched, the inheritance he had walked away from, the money that had sat untouched for nearly a decade, had grown. A lot. Christopher blinked at the number, stunned. He had known there was money there, but he had never imagined this. Not because of greed, he simply never thought his parents' investments, now managed silently by the trust's automatic system, could multiply so drastically. He felt his throat tighten, not with excitement, but with confusion and guilt. He had lived paycheck to paycheck, while this fortune sat untouched. He thought of Charity sleeping in her small bedroom with the broken night light. Of the peanut butter sandwiches he packed because they were cheaper. Of the shoes he patched with glue. A swirl of emotions hit him like a storm. Veronica inhaled sharply, realizing what had happened. She stepped back, not out of judgment now, but out of something closer to shock, maybe even embarrassment. The janitor she had scolded, the men she assumed had nothing, had more wealth in his account than every executive on the top floor combined. The directors stuttered awkward excuses and retreated quickly. Christopher sat still. He didn't smile. He didn't celebrate. He simply folded his hands and looked down, overwhelmed by the sudden collision of humility, grief, and possibility. Veronica found herself at a loss for words. Something inside her shifted, shame at her assumptions, guilt for laughing, and a strange admiration for a man who had chosen a life of simplicity, hardship, and responsibility, even when he could have taken the easy way out. She gently asked if he needed anything, more time on the computer, privacy, support. But Christopher shook his head. He told her softly that he only wanted one thing, a chance to help his daughter have a better life. He didn't elaborate. He didn't brag. He didn't mention that he had sacrificed comfort and pride to be a present father. Veronica's voice wavered as she apologized sincerely, telling him that no one, no matter their job, deserved to be judged. She offered her office if he needed privacy. She offered support for his daughter's schooling. She even offered to connect him with financial advisors who could ensure he used the trust responsibly. But Christopher simply thanked her and asked if he could take his break early so he could go pick up Charity from school and give her a small surprise. The walk home was different. The air felt lighter, the world a little brighter. Christopher didn't think about luxury cars or giant houses. He thought about fixing the leaky roof in their apartment. About buying Charity the science kit she begged for last Christmas. About finally taking her to the beach like he had promised. Moments like these remind us in the most unexpected ways that every person carries a story, a struggle, a secret battle we can't see. So if this story touches you, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means more than you know. That night, Christopher made grilled cheese sandwiches, the good kind with real butter, and told his daughter they were celebrating. Charity didn't know what changed, but she felt something warm in her father's smile, something hopeful. She asked him if things were going to be okay now. Christopher pulled her close, kissed the top of her head, and whispered that things were going to be better than okay. Before the story ends, I want you to comment this: kindness always matters. Later, when Charity finally fell asleep, Christopher sat on their small couch, hands clasped, silently thanking God for the strength that had carried him, the humility that kept him grounded, and the second chance he never expected. He didn't feel rich. He felt blessed. He felt relieved. And most of all, he felt grateful that he had never let hardship change the goodness in his heart. If this story moved you, even just a little, please engage with the video. Your like, share, and comment helps more than you realize, and it inspires us to keep creating meaningful stories for you. And somewhere in the tall Brookside Capitol Tower, Veronica sat alone in her office, thinking about the janitor who had reminded her that real wealth isn't found in numbers, it's found in character.